Hands
angle
from
there,
Nathan,
nice,
big
nice
left kick. Here comes Jordan
come back with those hands again.
Hey yo, it's your boy Shane here. Before we start today's episode, we have a new sponsor on board. So getting behind the Combat Chat podcast now is Manscaped, who are the best in the world for men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, is here. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code COMBATCHAT, all one word. If my maths correct, that's about 8 million balls. Okay, fellas, let's be honest. There's always that story of us trying to trim the hedges, mow the lawn when in the younger days, but even probably now, because we don't want anything scraggly down here. We don't want our budgie smugglers to look like they're tarantula smugglers. Okay, we've got to keep it fresh. Okay, and this is where the lawnmower 4.0 comes in place, and I've used it myself. And it's great. I got nothing but good things to say about it, actually. So, I'm going to kind of keep everything pristine from now on because Manscaped's on board. And it doesn't stop there. You also got the Weed Whacker, which is good for the nose hairs, the ears hairs. You also have the ball deodorant, the ball toner. So after you smooth it and kind of moisturize some of them, they're going to be smooth as eggs. Who doesn't want to touch them after that? For real. So in saying that, it's time to take care of yourself. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code COMBATCHAT, all one word. So remember, to get 20% off, free worldwide shipping, put in Combat Chat in at manscaped.com. And remember, unlock your confidence and always use the right tools with the job with Manscaped. Boys are here.
Hello.
Or are we? So
pre-podcast.
Yes, if you're listening to this one, not here in person as such,
because we are busy.
Yeah, because you probably would have just fought.
Yes.
As well. So we're just doing a mini podcast, because we actually get questions, and we don't get around to answering a lot of them actually. So this is a good opportunity to actually do it. So what is the questions that you have in your DMs?
I get questioned a lot. I get this, every time we ask for questions, I get this question. I feel like it's fun to go over because, so I got to ask, who's your favorite fighter and why do you like them? I feel like I've touched on a couple of times, who my all-time favorite fighters are. I think it's very difficult for me to go past Namsak Noi as because he's the greatest, but I feel like when I answer who my favorite fighter is, they're kind of different reasons. I have I feel like it's difficult for my favorite to be anyone but Namsak Noi because he's as close as it gets for me to the perfect fighter. He went through such a long run where he was effectively unbeatable, and I also loved that his blend of beautifully technical, but also I thought what the difference maker for Namsak Noi was that he was just unbreakable. It felt like everything you tried against, he had this ring generalship and this determination that it's kind of difficult to describe. I think it's something you have to sort of just watch him fight to understand. He wasn't he was so stylistically adaptable, but I thought what made him different was he was just so, I find it it's so relentless in that it's every card you play, he's got the counter move, you know what I mean? He was a difficult dude his demeanor was incredible. That's why I think look at Namsak Noi as my favorite. But I have other fighters that I find my favorite from a study perspective. I love Karuhat. He's just so silky smooth, one of my stylistic favorites just from aesthetically my favorite fighter. And then the other one who Karuhat fought a bunch of times, Wang Chanoi. Wang Chanoi is one of my favorites, just so heavy-handed. I really like Wang Chanoi. That's probably of my all-time favorites.
Just that kind of golden era.
Across the board. But I have modern favorites as well that I think if you want someone to watch who's on the scene now, he's probably actually fighting right now. Literally. I mean, not while you're listening to this. But at time of recording, because I know he's on this afternoon, Yod IQ, PK Sanchai is really, really good. I've been loving watching him fight lately. Yeah, if you want someone to look up, he's really good. as the name suggests, IQ. Just beautiful to watch. I also really like, Taksin Lek. I've been watching a lot of Taksin Lek.
I've probably seen him a couple of times, but if I saw him, I'd probably recognize him.
Yeah, he's dope. Taksin Lek's been one of my favorite race fighters. But I don't know, people always like to tell me that I have 300 favorite fighters. So it's my favorite fighter. But I mean, there's different layers, right? So to answer the question, I have all-time favorite fighters. But I think it's also important to know. I like to just give shouts to good. I think Yacht IQ is one you're going to see in one championship in the not too distant future. I think he's going to be one of the next guys there. But I have a lot of current day favorite fighters too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. If I was going like that modern, I always go back to Samurai Pakarum. It's but also he's so stylistically nice to watch. But I've got a mad respect for a guy that crossed over the two sports and was at the best, boxing as well. Muay Thai, because if you try and train both those sports, there's parts that will link in, but to do top level on each one is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it work. One of the day ones I like, I really like watching Talon Chai.
Yeah.
Was it Ritawada?
Yeah. Little A is one of my favorites too.
It's hopefully,
Ritawada.
Yeah, it's I don't know if there's been much seen of him coming back anytime soon, because he's been out for a little bit. So
he fought not that long ago, right? When was the summer? It feels a long time for me.
Yeah, it does. It just feels like a long time.
Maybe it was a while ago now. Yeah.
And then Talon Joy, damn, this is a mad run. The man just tearing through one.
Yeah, could be very close to being the top 70 kilo fighter.
Yeah, well,
let's see what happens with Petr
Markov. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, those two are meant to kind of match up now, and that's a good match. That. Yeah. All right. What other questions you got through?
What is the one is a little bit more of, I guess, a coaching and career development question. When should a fighter start fighting 5 rounds? I mean, I got my take on this.
Straight away.
Whenever you want. I don't know. I feel like it kind of opens the door to an each. I
guess it's where you're actually based out. I don't know what country you are. What's the system in place?
Yeah, I mean, to me, a professional Muay Thai fight, I understand 3-round fights.
Of course, yeah.
To me, a professional Muay Thai fight's 5 rounds. Maybe that's I feel if you're going to be I understand it's what constitutes a pro fight is different state by state. I feel if you're a pro Muay Thai fighter, you can't be I don't fight 5 rounds.
Oh, if you've got a hardline rule.
Yeah. But for the most part, I don't even think there's any set structure. Get your feet wet fighting 3 rounds for sure. And then whenever isn't my answer, but pretty early. I don't think it should be this big, we're going to have 20 fights before we fight 5 rounds.
It's just, I think you should just get
when the offer comes.
If you
when
can
the
get
offer
fives,
comes.
go for it. It's at the moment, with the pros I got from there, because they're just B-class pros anyway, and just they get 3 frees, but I never asked for 3 frees. And
yeah,
it's also a time constraint on the shows.
Yeah, as you work up the card, it's going to be when you have your first few pro fights, it'll probably be early in the show in 3-rounders. When the call comes.
And also stylistically, I guess as well. I prefer 5s because you got more time to set up stuff.
Yeah.
As well, and it's especially if you've got a good gas tank, it works pretty well in your favour. Also.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have an answer on that. That's to me, as a fighter, I wanted 5-rounders as soon as I could have them. I think probably my 6th amateur fight was 5 2-minute rounds. Yeah. And then I have barely fought 3 rounds since then. I have sometimes.
Yeah.
And even my first pro fight was 5 rounds. Yeah. So
I think even amateur, if you can, you might have to, if you're so inclined to fight for bullshit titles, that's okay. But if I remember doing back in the day more so for amateurs, it's just to get 5 rounds, get used to it a bit. Because you can go pro. Hopefully we're just going to keep doing 5 rounds. So why not try and get it now?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And ring time is you got to drive to the arena anyway. You might as well get 2 more rounds for ring time if you can.
Get your money's worth.
Yeah. So to answer the question, I don't think of it when viable is when they should. Like, I guess I think you're doing something wrong if you're saying like, no, please don't give us 5 rounds.
Oh, you can't do 5 rounds.
Yeah, I don't. No, I won't get into it. I'll talk to you next time. Yeah, like, I think that's a problem. Like, I understand sometimes based on how many fights a show can put on, and like building guys up, you have 3 rounders. But I just feel like you should fight 5 rounds when someone asks you to. Like, I don't think you should be talking your way back from 5 rounds. I think you're fucking up if you're doing that. To be honest.
Yeah, and I guess it comes into your training as well. Like, what are you doing in training? Are you just doing 3 rounds?
But when someone says like, "Oh, can we just do a 3 rounder? I'm not fit enough for 5," and like, I promise you, it happens. What? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always talk to like fighters who are actually good, and they're like, yeah, you can fight 3, you can fight 5, but it's not like, oh, I'm having a 3-round fight, I'm gonna do, 3/5 of the amount of training. Like, it's just like, you train and then you're gonna fight, and obviously your approach will change. But it's just the idea of like, oh, I don't have time for 5 rounds, let's just do 3. What? I don't have enough time to get ready.
Yeah.
What?
Eh?
Like,
What?
yeah. Like, I don't know, you're backward if you're doing that.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, when I train the guys, because like, like training fights, like you got pros, amateurs, and then like development day guys, and doing 90 seconds. Amateurs are doing 2s, pros does 3. I was like, everyone does 3s.
Yeah.
Let's go, fuck it. It's like,
honestly, if you like, I don't know, I never understand fucking turning the 2-minute round on in a gym. Like, what? Like, just, you're not trying to prepare your novice fighters for novice fights. They're just like to get them through onto something a bit bigger. Like, yeah, I don't get.
And plus, like, you just like, because, I'm fighting 1.5. It's like, yeah, okay. If you do 3,
you can have double
extra work.
Yeah.
You're getting more work done.
Yeah.
It's like, you're developing.
Yeah, I just think, the way it plays out oftentimes now is like, the 5 rounders are at the top of the show and the 3 rounders open it up, which is cool. But yeah, you should just be trying to gain experience, and there will just come a point when the fight's 5 rounds and you should just be ready for it. Yeah. That's my answer to that question.
Do you think there's a bit of a change happening because, like, like more that like entertainment Muay Thai, is that the term? Like,
yeah, well,
like the 3 rounders are being a lot more prevalent.
I mean, in that sense as well, I think everyone wants to go to one championship. So if you're like, I only fight 5 rounds as well, you should just take every experience that comes up. But there's of course benefit in taking 3 rounders because it's a bit of a different game, and you want to go to these one championship type shows. You're going to be fighting 3-round fights, so they have their place, I believe.
Yeah.
As a spectator and a fighter, I prefer 5s, but 3 rounds is fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. What's another one you got there, mate?
Oh yeah, this one I didn't back to back with my other question because they're pretty ssimilar. Your favorite Australian fighter and what they did for the sport.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. I mean, I like that kind of. I like the add-on to the question, but it also makes it like you're not really gonna go past John Wayne Parr for that in terms of what he did for the sport. Kind of put it on the map in Australia in a lot of ways.
Pretty much, and probably like started like that era, like this wave of Muay Thai fighters coming from Australia.
Yeah, as well. and kind of really went and did it. I know he showed that you can just go and he kind of like knocked down that door into Thailand and showed that a Westerner can go over there or an Australian, I guess, can go over there and really become a fixture in Thailand. Muay Thai really brought a lot of notoriety back with him and a lot of the golden era, I guess you'd say, Australian shows kind of like he was really helped build them up. So in terms of influence, it's difficult to go past John Wayne Parr. There are definitely a lot of other guys you could point to. The Preacher, big one.
Preacher.
I've always been, and like a lot of this is influenced by the time that I was coming up watching the sport before I started. I always really liked Mike 300. I think Mike 300 did a lot for the sport too. And guys who did a lot for the sport to me are guys who kind of pushed the the upper limit. You know, like Mark 300 was here in Australia for 8 foot super bond. You know, Toby's another big one for that reason too. A guy who proved that an Australian can fight at this high level. Toby's fought some of the best. These are all examples of guys that, and that, like, I could go on forever. Don't want to get accused of forgetting anyone. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of really strong examples of guys who paved the way.
And they kind of created the sport where it kind of is today. And like, you know, even just going into like just a few other people from that one, that's like people like Soren Monkontong.
Yeah, Soren's
especially from off the back of the Contenders Asia series.
Yeah, he's on the Australian Mount Rushmore. One of my favorites.
It's funny, like you got like a personality like Preacher, and then you got a personality like Soren, just completely different types. But it's good to have it from both ends.
Soren, another really good example of a guy who showed what was possible. Soren's fought at.
That's what I was like when you were saying that, like question. Yeah. I always come back to Soren.
Soren, yeah,
really kind of stuck in my mind heaps. Yeah.
Can't go past Soren, and then there's other examples too. You know,
I think for women, Kaylee Reese can't go past her.
Kaylee Reese.
Put like Australian Muay Thai women, really
royalty.
That does not like really nothing before that.
Absolute royalty. Yeah. You know, Kurt Finlayson.
Yeah, Kurt Finlayson.
Fought Sanchai a couple of times. That's why, like, I point at what they did for the sport. Like, you know, this is a time where you're bringing Sanchai onto Australian shores, and someone had to put the hand up to fight him. And this is Sanchai a number of years ago too. That's why I put him.
Kurt never shot away from a fight.
Aaron Lee,
same
thing. He I think beat Damien Trainer for a world title.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah. So just the guys who showed, I think Australian Muay Thai, that era is really known as the one that the world still thinks of Australia as a strong Muay Thai nation because of what these guys that I'm mentioning did. And like, to bring it back to that point of the question of what they did for the sport, showed what was possible, and then brought another generation coming up trying to achieve similar heights. So that's some of my examples.
Yeah, nice. Like probably even expanding on top of that question, like not even just fighters, like let's say media and like promotions as well, that kind of expand. Like, so that was the evolution era. So Nugget McNaught, like a big driving force, so like, you know, giving a platform to these fighters for go on and be on Fox Sports. Yeah. Also, like, you know, bringing over fighters as well, like from Thailand, from the UK, that to, like, you know, showcase that, you know, like Australia can actually hang on this international level. Yeah. And I guess going back again, like and it kind of runs into it, the Contender Asia series.
Yeah, Contender Asia was massive.
Yeah, it was such a big show back then. I forgot like how big it was. It was, and it's like in a creative. There were so many good personalities on that show also. Yeah,
and I read the other day that the Challenger series is going to come back.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and that points.
You send your resume in?
I mean, like, I haven't looked into detail into what the criteria is, to be honest, or how they go about doing selections, but I'd really like to.
It'd be pretty cool. They brought it back. It'd be I think it's probably like a good time to bring it back.
I think so. Yeah, because I think you talk to a lot of people, and they started getting involved in Muay Thai because of the Contender Asia. But people still say that, and there was no consistent follow up to that. And I think Muay Thai is probably at a place where you've got like the sport has a bit more notoriety now, where saying you're doing a Muay Thai reality show would turn some heads. I think like the time after, like Muay Thai was probably bigger before the Contender Asia than it was for a lot of time after it. Even like the Contender Asia drove it up. Yeah. But it's not like I think people were paying attention because it was a time when these guys that came in were stars, and they had enough kind of brand power that the content. Whereas like there was a lot of years beyond that where like there wasn't a lot going on that would kind of you know, not a lot that could start an interest. But I think probably at a place now where we have the foundation, like the foothold to where something like the Contender Asia, if the Challenger series can do it, could really elevate the status. So
definitely. And I guess like a quick shout out to it also, it's like a little bit of the modern era from this Warriors of the Mongkong, their video series. That would have created a lot of people, like just like, you know, kind of looking at the sport a bit differently, what they had like homegrown here, but then they kind of show you what goes into like, fighters' lives.
That was huge at the time.
Yeah,
of the original series, and a lot of good stuff coming out. You're like, fuck, talk about go bust his ass for Muay Thai just because of the love. He's Owen Warriors in the Moncon. It's not like he's like trying to he doesn't own a commercial gym or have fighters he's trying to market. He just wants to grow. He's out there putting in like fucking blood, sweat and tears just to actually grow the sport. I really like him. I get along really well with him because he's an ideas guy and wants to support anyone who's trying to it's refreshing to have someone around who just wants to grow the sport because obviously we all have personal interests and that's fine when we're talking about gym owners and running a show and stuff like that, but it's not like he's promoting an event or running a gym, or he just wants to do stuff.
It's not like it's a huge money making business for him.
Yeah, it's just love, and that's what he's
a tree lobber.
And then
he's just got ultra mad cinematic skills.
Yeah, and a wicked fucking backyard.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, go visit Warriors of Moncon.
Yeah, so cool.
If you do though, you better sharpen up your basketball skills because Owen will pull you.
Owen is aggressive with the 1v1 basketball.
I liked it though. I took him on. I haven't played basketball since I was primary school. I said blocked him a few times.
I'm not good at basketball. I've been practicing at Warriors.
Yeah, but it's like But shout out to Owen for like doing a lot of the great work on it. Basically, his
great dude.
Thing. Cool. Any other questions?
Let me see my next question.
Yeah.
I had them all memorized, but I forgot what they were. That could be. No, I could probably unpack this right now. Could you clarify what the golden era means? People always talk about golden era Muay Thai, but could you give a little background?
That's interesting.
Explanation? That is a good. That's a good question.
That is a good question. Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Well, it's like, why was it the golden era? Why did people look at it so nostalgically?
Okay, so I would probably get it wrong if I tried to isolate the years that the golden era was, but I'd say it was like the 90s was the golden era, the late 80s. You'd probably say the golden era. The golden era was
when it's still
the
VHS
90s.
tapes.
The 90s, yeah, it was the golden era. What made it the golden era? People debate on what this is. There was a tremendous amount of star power in the golden era. I think what the difference when people get sort of disillusioned about modern Muay Thai, and we're talking real Muay Thai, like within Thailand, I think oftentimes what the problem becomes is people say there's a little handful of top end fighters, but it's not like the stable of truly elite fighters that people were hanging to watch felt almost endless in the golden era. And these are the guys who point to. I talked about a couple of them before, Wang Chanoi, Karu Hart. These guys, it was like there was just there was seemingly endless, truly elite level fighters always fighting each other. And the game was a little bit different. So you'll see a lot of the things people find frustrating about Muay Thai gambling influence now. Okay, so like to keep it, what made it the golden era without like to kind of phrase it, is that the popularity made it the golden era too, and that's within Thailand. Just to lead into what I'm about to talk about is that like the stadiums were packed. There was a lot of general fanfare for the sport, and that is what gave rise to the gambling that we know today, because there was so much widespread attention for the sports that, of course, as with any popular sport, gambling kind of picked up, and then in large part kind of the influence the gambling was able to have over the sport in this time kind of started to change the sport as we know, because we find a lot of frustrations with the sport now that the guys start super, super slow, and they often only they're only really 2-round fights a lot of the time in the stadiums. 3 matters as a lead in, and 4's where it's really decided, and 5 they kind of dance. What I I wasn't there. From watching those fights, what I kind of point to as a difference is that guys went to war for 5 rounds.
Yep.
And that was in large part because the purses were bigger, the popularity was higher. Guys were out there to fight. There was a little bit more of a it was, a bit more of a true spectacle, whereas like it felt like as that gambling kind of established itself, people started to fight to the gamblers a little bit more. There was gambling in the golden era. It's just the fanfare and kind of the potential rewards. The purses were higher for the fighters, and that meant they really went for it. Whereas as it became a little bit more business oriented, the guys really started to fight to kind of appease these gamblers, and that was sort of the transition. So when people point to the golden era, I also believe that I think you saw a more stylistic diversity in the golden era, and like we were talking before about sort of all of these fighters, it was like like there was like when you look at kind of what constituted like the female stylists of those days, within that style they were very, very different. And then again, coming back to that sort of like, it became a lot more cut and dry about sort of the win and the loss and appealing to gamblers, that like people tried to fit these much more defined archetypes, and it did become a little bit more of the same thing over and over again, more than like, whereas when you go and watch golden era fights, it felt like these guys they had their own styles, and there was such a diverse range of beautiful styles, and they really went to war with them. Whereas it became this little bit more of a point centric kind of, you want to really look like you're doing this or this or this. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but yeah. So what made it the golden era is looked at as a time period across the 90s. What sort of influence that made it so incredible, I think, was kind of like the authenticity of it, is that people weren't fighting to... I think people weren't... The fighters really just had their own styles and really fought in line with the styles of their gyms or their trainers, whereas like now it feels like... Or not even really now, but then what kind of, I think, had the popularity fall off over a period of time was that there started to become a little bit more of a cookie cutter approach. And you'll hear, there's a lot of really interesting content online of golden era fighters.
Yeah.
Like your Samarts and things like that, talking about what the difference was. And they often say what makes the difference is that like the golden era emerged, like here's the style that's dominant, and then trainers started trying to just make their fighters
so like, you know, having like the gym has its own style, the trainer has style, or their fighter has. So they're trying to appease. Yeah. Like more so like, yeah, what's in vogue at the time.
Yeah, exactly right. And that kind of had the sport slow down a little bit. But it's an interesting question, and I was talking to some friends about this the other day, is that I actually like, there's often this idea that like things were good in the golden era and they suck today, and like people love to be Muay Thai hipsters and be like, I only watch the old stuff. And it's like, yeah, look, there's a lot of really good stuff online, and I often point our new guys towards 90s fights that I like. Shouts Brian Pope Joe, because he uploads like most of the stuff I watch. But I actually think there was an era like in the era that I used to watch, like when I came home from school, was like across like the years around 2010, like the late noughties, early 2010s, where like now that that's in the rearview mirror, I think we always look at things that are old as better. Like, I don't know why that is, but in virtually every combat sport, it's the same. Like boxing heads will tell you how much better boxing was.
Probably just because like it just feels more familiar.
Yeah, I don't know why, but
more
now,
emotional, nostalgic feel to
it. I think that was an era that people were in saying like, fuck, the golden era was better, Muay Thai sucks today. But that time period, that was like, Sanchai was still in the stadiums, Singdam was in the stadiums, Pakorn, Sagadao, Ponsonay was still having these really entertaining fights.
I guess you were kind of seeing more like these, like more stars, but the finished product.
Yeah. A lot more. Yodwichar was coming up then. Like I could keep naming all of these guys that were fighting each other. You know, Nongo as well. Like, I don't know why, if you're looking at that era of fighters and saying like I guess what I'm saying is like, that was kind of one of my, to sidetrack a little bit, that was one of my favorite eras of fights to watch. Like, I actually think that skill-wise, you'd have to say was almost as good. Like, maybe there was less fighters, but the main difference I feel between that era and today is that, like, now it does feel like there is like that was a time where even as it's a little bit hard to follow the sport in Thailand as Westerners. That felt like every week there was this big fight between two guys that had established a bit of star power. Now it feels like there's definitely good fighters, but you got to watch a little bit harder to know when they're on.
Yeah.
And it feels a little bit more saturated with less distinct styles now.
Yeah, it's like it's funny, like it's like you can view Muay Thai so much readily nowadays, and like you said, like it just probably feels a lot more saturated because there is a lot more happening from there. But that was a very interesting question, though.
Yeah, good question.
I like that one question. Yeah, and I like the answer. Like, just sitting here, just looking. Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Was there any more questions?
Let me see.
Let's go one more.
Might not even have any more.
If not, though, that's fine.
Well, one of the questions we covered in like the breakdown portion, I got asked to give a shout to. Oh no, let's do this one. This is like I'll answer. I like to get like the training people. I got asked the best age to retire.
Oh, okay, the best age to retire. I don't know, when you don't like it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is like I always do is I'm just gonna answer this question the way I want to answer it. All right, best answer. There's no way to answer that, but I also think it opens the door to some interesting questions in that. Okay, hey, you should just retire when you don't like it anymore. Like that's really it, and that's always what I've talked to. That's what I always said. Like I'm fully conscious of the idea that at any given time, and people say I won't, but I'm human as well. One day I might just go train and be like, you know what, I actually fucking hate this now, and like I'm completely open to the idea that happens to me someday, and that's the day when I'll say to my trainer, let's not do this anymore. Fair. Because shit is hard and it takes virtually all of your time.
And if your heart's not in it.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. Yeah. That's when you should retire. But I also think it's an interesting question that I think sometimes people are like, I'm going to do this until this date. And it's not always that cut and dry. Like you can't.
Like an age limit.
Yeah, don't keep fighting because you set yourself a goal, even if you don't like it. I mean, push yourself a little bit. It's not always going to be roses. If that's really important to you, keep going, but check in with yourself, I guess. But also I think it's interesting in that a lot of time people now, I think the game is changing in that Muay Thai definitely has a Thailand influenced sort of thing where like people want to get going really, really young, and sort of people that do that get out quite young as well. Whereas like I think now we are in a position where we know more, and you see across other combat sports, guys are peaking later and later.
Yes. Yeah,
like we are now seeing in like MMA, especially like guys are just hitting like the world championship level, like close to 40. You know, and in Muay Thai again we do the Muay Thai thing, and it's a pressure created by like when you watch a young like Tawanchai is like 23 years old, and he's had hundreds of fights and he's on top of the world, and you're like, fuck, I have to be. He's younger than me. I've got to I've
got to catch up here.
Yeah, whereas as Westerners, it's just different. We find the sport later, but also we know more about sports science now where we can continue to get better for longer. So as we like enhancing our, like not only we know how to like extend what we can get out of our bodies with effective recovery practices, strength and conditioning and things like that. We know how to continue athletically improving and preserving our body so we can keep developing our technique. So I think like what it means to be an old athlete is changing.
Yeah.
And as I think as Muay Thai fighters, oftentimes we're in a rush because we feel like
if it is the hours and the time glass is just quickly stripping away.
Yeah. Whereas I actually honestly think like as Muay Thai modernizes, as our approach modernizes in Western countries, like, are you going to see guys stick around longer? And as you should, like, it's good. For me personally, like, I've had a conversation, and this is another one that I thought this question would be a good one to touch on, is like, have you mapped your career to an endpoint? And I think a lot of people, what I mean by that is have you sat down with your trainer and been like, this is everything I want to do in my career, these are my goals, and this is when I'm happy to. I don't think a lot of people have had a conversation like that, and I have sat down with my trainer and talked about the whole thing. This is what we're going to do for this amount of time, and this is when we're gonna hang them up.
You train 'em.
Yeah, like I think it's an interesting one. It's like, when should I retire? It's like, hey, understand what you want to achieve, because like when you're kind of starting to think about like, should I keep going or should I not? I would be like, you got to know what you actually, because like that's how you can get yourself on a hamster wheel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But then also, I think people need to plan smarter. You know what I mean, and that will help you build perspective. Because like, I have had a conversation with my trainer that included like, this is how we want to see things go all the way until and like this is when I want to step away because this is what I want to do next, kind of conversations that I don't think a lot of I think it's great in a lot of ways to take your career fight by fight, but also to make the right decisions on the fly. I think you have to think a little bit more big picture. So yeah, in short answer is you should retire whenever the fuck you want. But also when it comes to making whole career decisions like that, yeah, I think it helps to plan big picture. Where do you really want to go? And also like, I think a lot of people don't make plans about like, what do I want to do with the sport? Because like, they don't even want to say it out loud, because it's like, then if I don't do it, I
failed.
Push yourself, man. Like, say what you really want to do.
Of course.
And then, because like, what's the worst that could happen?
Doesn't happen.
Don't get it in the end. Whatever. At least you dared to try to do something that you.
So I can remember that guy that had a lot of fights, but he didn't do what he said he was going to do.
Yeah,
Fuck that
man.
guy.
Yeah, like
no one ever said that.
Exactly. Like, I think there's heaps that like, if the worst case scenario is just like you spend all your time doing something you love and you don't quite excel the way you wanted to, you still win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just think, I think it comes back to this thing. It's almost like uncool to dream big. Like, we just hammer that in. Like, I see this a lot now that I'm an old man.
I think it's a bit Australian thing.
Yeah. It's this tall poppy syndrome thing. And I see it a lot in like kind of school age kids. Is like the kid that is uncool is the one who's like trying his best at something. And it is just like, and we take this, because I remember this from like when I was in school. That was like a very common thing. It was like, look at this guy trying his best. What a dickhead.
Look at this loser trying to succeed.
And some people never outgrow that. Like in the workplace, someone who wants to excel is like, look at this guy.
Well, you're making us all look bad. You're trying to.
Yeah, but that just screams insecurity so bad.
That's like what's the analogy? The crabs in the bucket. They're trying to climb out, but they're pulling each other down at the same time. So no one gets out of the bucket in the end.
Yeah, like, I don't know, just have like enough courage to be like, this is what I want to do, and then like, yeah, I just think it's
run with it, man. It's like, dare to be fucking good. If it doesn't happen, like, fuck, at least you go like, well, at least I tried. And you'll never have these kind of lingering thoughts that go, fuck, maybe I should have just done that.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows whatever would have changed. But yeah, but and on the retirement discussion, if you go into the high level ones, like if you compete at a certain level for a long time but can't hang, and then just you have to drop back, is that time to retire, or is it just like you just kind of like, is the part of your career now where you're going, oh, look, I'm still enjoying it. Like, if you think like a John Wayne Parr, like I'm pretty sure, like if he could still do it, like, physically, like he'd be still there, like still cracking on.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's kind of like structures like that often don't exist in combat sports, right? Like, what do we do for the guys that are a little bit past their prime but don't want to stop doing it? I don't think that's something we've figured out yet.
Yeah.
Because it's a brutal sport in that name value is so important, and it is such like, and we've seen this in every combat sport time and time and time again. It's like, it's back to that like professional wrestling idea. Like, you talk about putting someone over.
Yep.
Like, that's taking the older guy who's got the established name value and letting the young up. That's how you build the star power. That's how you create the next star. It's like, it happens in combat sports a lot too. If you're an older guy with big name value that chooses to stick around, that's kind of the only. I don't think we have an avenue in really any combat sport where you like a masters division. And like that's another question as well, and probably a question for another time, is like, do we want that?
Do we want that? Like, well, I guess the only kind of example I can think of is like when Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones.
Yeah, and that was kind of just like, this is fun.
This is
just two old boys having a go.
looked alright.
In a different, they fought 2-minute rounds, I believe.
Yeah, it's like they didn't go, we have to fight threes. They go, let's fight twos. And let's just, fight, I think maybe even a little bit bigger gloves as well. Just have a bang around.
Yeah, I like that kind of thing. I think it's fun.
Yeah, not a bad thing, but definitely maybe food for thought in the future. Yeah, cool. Interesting questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, so keep sending them in though. And
questions.
Eventually we can do more things like this where we can just kind of get a short one done, answer it, have it pre-recorded and just release it for such
bonus
occasions.
Content.
Yeah, maybe we should start a Patreon. That's it. Monetize everything. All right, cool. So good. Thanks again. Like I said, send us questions. Get us in the comment section in YouTube as well. Rate, like, subscribe, all the sort. Okay, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Peace.